Robertson Roberts Brokerage presents Keenevention 2015's Media Panel. Robertson Roberts, when you're serious about precious metals. Online at rrbi.co.
Shire Dude will be heading up this third annual media panel here, which is always historically at Keenevention a really informative and useful panel because we have so many wonderful personalities in the sort of the media realm here in New Hampshire. It can be a little difficult to choose who to come up on stage. So basically the way it works at Keenevention is I pick the panel host, and then the panel host decides what they're going to talk about and who they're going to have on. So I'm going to let Shire Dude introduce his distinguished panel of media stars and experts. And Shire Dude came here in May of 2014. This is his second Keenevention, and he's really kind of hit the ground running with media. Created his own Shire Dude brand and video series. Also, of course, was involved with Cecilia and the It's Like This Too video series. I'm not sure what the status of that is. Maybe he'll tell us that today. And just a great all-around media personality, video talent. He's, I think, hireable as an editor as well. So thanks for coming to Keenevention, and have a good panel.
All right. Cool. So, real fast, I moved here, like Ian said, May 2014. But before that, what I did was I read ebooks, I listened to podcasts, and I watched videos on YouTube. And somehow a mixture of those things convinced me to move to Manchester, New Hampshire, which just seems crazy to me. But that's the wonderful world we live in with media. But unfortunately, many of these, the media gurus that create that Liberty Media, that content, they disappear as quickly as they appear because they fail to sustainably monetize their media. And so I want to focus specifically this media panel on monetization of that. And in the spirit of that, I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves by selling what you do. So starting with Darryl and going down.
So I am Darryl W. Perry. I'm the owner and managing editor of Free Press Publications. And under the FPP banner, there's newspapers, there's online content, there are physical books, there are ebooks, there's also several audio things that I do. There's the daily FPP radio news newscast that has been going since February of 2014. There's only been a 3-day absence, and that was the 3 days that I was in jail for some form of civil disobedience and refusing to pay a fine. And I was unable to find someone willing to record and produce the newscast for money while I was in jail. So I do that. I have the Peace, Love, Liberty Radio podcast. There's also the weekly FPP Freedom Minute. And I've got a table in the back. You can stop and grab papers and buy books from me later in the day.
My name is Brett Veinotte. I'm the creator of the School Sucks project, which began in 2009 as just a podcast. It grew from there in the following years into a larger web community. We still do the podcast, and that is our primary effort, but there's also a YouTube channel and a Facebook group where we have a lot of discussion. Those have obviously at this point replaced online forums. So the show School Sucks started as basically my journaling. I worked in education for over a decade, and I did the podcast as kind of a therapy. It was mostly things that I wasn't able to say in school meetings and also keep my job. So after that, after we did about 100 episodes, which took just shy of 2 years, we were doing the show on like a weekly basis, we started to turn in a more constructive direction to talk about what real education is. And we shifted from a largely libertarian audience, and this will probably come up later in the panel, to a lot of people who are more interested in solutions, people who wanted to do home education, people who wanted to educate themselves. And the show grew to a point where I was able to quit my job as a tutor. I was running a tutoring company in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and pursue the School Sucks project full time, and that was end of 2013.
Thanks, Brett. My name is Derrick J. Freeman, and I've done a few different media ventures since moving to New Hampshire in 2011. I started out just recording my journey for my own personal interest and uploading to a YouTube channel. Whenever something really interesting happened, I would make that like an official Freeman TV video. And I did monetize that like right off the bat through Google AdWords. Was just, you know, the basic, oh, let's throw up ads on these YouTube videos, and then from that made a documentary called Derrick J's Victimless Crime Spree, which then later sold, victimlesscrimespree.com. It's also free online. And when I left New Hampshire, I started a project called Peace News Now, which I'm really obsessed with news and what's going on in the world. So I wanted an outlet to talk about that, but didn't want another doom and gloom style news program where, hey, all this bad stuff is happening. So I tried to focus on, you know, what's going right in the world. And that sold really well. Took me while I was in exile and supported me. I've monetized that through advertisements. You know, that was a new venture for me, like actually going out, pitching people saying, hey, I want to make this news program. Will you please, you know, give me money so that I can advertise your website or product, and I'll put it in the middle. And that was successful enough to sustain me through living in Philadelphia. And then when I moved back to New Hampshire, I got involved with Flaming Freedom, which was a show that existed before me, Cop Block Radio, which existed before me, and Freedom Fiends. All, you know, I didn't start those, but now I'm very much a part of them. And I continue with Flaming Freedom, Cop Block Radio, and Freedom Fiends, all of which can be found on my website, thederrickj.com. And now I rely on donations. I wanted to get away from the advertisement model, away from the Google AdWords, and just serve my listeners. The people who have been following me, they know where I am. It's at my website, and if you like my work, you can donate in Bitcoin. You know, we live in an age where it's easy enough to just send people money across the internet, and fortunately people do.
Yeah, that base level is got to be, you got to accept donations in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And PayPal, ideally. Thanks, guys.
And with Shapeshift, you can take pretty much any cryptocurrency and it gets converted into Bitcoin or whatever crypto you want to receive on your end.
Is that shapeshift.com?
.io.
.org?
.io.
Oh, IO. Okay. All right. Next, I wanted to kind of learn from your guys' mistakes. So your least successful attempt to monetize your media, what would that be? I'll start with my own. I did a Teespring crowdfunding shirt thing, which I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's kind of like people pledge to buy shirts. If you reach the pledge goal, then the shirts are sent out and you get the money, the proceeds from that. And I had like 2 people buy shirts. So that's probably like the worst.
You and Cecilia?
No. I actually ended up buying the rest of the shirts for the goal, which I had planned to do, and then sold them after the fact. So it wasn't terrible, but I've definitely got a theory about the T-shirt market being saturated in the liberty movement. And I think one of the main problems with it was people like to be like tactile when they're buying things. They like to touch the shirt and see how it fits on them. So that's a major problem. So Darryl?
I'm tempted to say that my least successful attempt to fundraise is that I'm not an attractive female. No, because it's serious. That like if you look, generally some pretty girl says, "I'm doing a podcast," and people are like, "Shut up and take my money," without even having heard anything. But it's definitely, because there's a lot of men in the liberty movement. So if you're focusing, on liberty movement, they're going to go towards the thing that pleases their eyes more than something that necessarily stimulates their brain. So there's that. But I would say for me, it's that I hate asking for money and I'm a horrible salesman. So I can't go out and, convince people buy ads on my things. Like I've got a bunch of stuff that I do, and right now I've got one advertiser that basically funds the newspaper. I do have a couple of donors that give donations that cover like web hosting cost, but for the most part, I'm not really making money at most of the media that I do. The book publishing, I do make a little bit of passive income from that, but yeah, like I would say I'm horrible at self-promotion, like good self-promotion. Like I'll definitely do shameless plugs for myself, but it's not good self-promotion, if that makes any sense.
All right, Brett?
My only failure is that I'm a perfectionist, and and that I love my country too much,
And you're too honest.
and that I'm too honest and humble. That's funnier if anyone watched the last presidential debate. Merch, obviously, that's everyone's biggest failure. Yeah, well, when I started the show, I mean, like I said before, I was just doing it as a hobby, but yeah, the question was in the back of my mind, in 2009, thinking that if I put something on the internet, I could be rich and famous from it. And I said, okay, well, how would School Sucks ever make money? And branding and merch was the only way that I could think of, that I thought kids would want to walk through schools with sweatshirts and backpacks and coffee mugs and trapper keepers and all that stuff. That
Drink koozies.
Yeah, that had the School Sucks logo on it. And the only thing we ever tried to print besides stickers was T-shirts. And I think we printed less than 100 in 2010, and I still have some of them. And I just went to like a local printing place, and we did a run, and I sold them at the first Pork Fest, and then I had some left over for Pork Fest 2011, and then I was giving them away at Pork Fest 2012.
Now they're vintage, right?
Now yeah. So there are more options now for doing merch, aside from having to put up the money ahead of time. You can do pre-orders. There's new competitors for, like, back when I was doing this, there was only, what are the
Cafe Press and Zazzle.
Yeah, that's over. I don't think that they're getting the business anymore. The Teespring thing, I think, is probably a better option. So yeah, that never really took shape, the merch. And I haven't given up on it, but it was just too much of a headache or investment up front initially to think about doing something like that again.
Okay, Derrick?
I was never one for merch. That stuff kind of never appealed to me anyway. Even when I really love my friends, I don't want their T-shirt or their hats because I don't wear that stuff. But the donation, judging success by how much money came in, the advertisements probably were best. Google is second, and third and least successful would be donations. They still come in, but it's in way smaller proportions compared to the other two. And I do continue just on the donation model, but you can do all three. So I would say donations are the least successful, probably because people are still accustomed to, like, you turn on the radio, you hear advertisements. You're just used to that. Like, that's how you're paying for what you're listening to. But it doesn't require any extra effort. Like, hey, you've really enjoyed this. Now go to XYZ and do XYZ thing. It's just you've taken care of that work for your listeners. So
you're talking specifically about like advertising your own thing on your own show?
You could advertise your own thing or advertise other products. I would say that's the most successful way in my experience to monetize your product, is to make sure you're selling other people's product.
Okay, all right.
It's been my experience.
That was the next question, which what was the most successful attempt? So we'll start with Darryl.
I would say the most successful and what's actually brought me in the most money is the book publishing side, which seems to be totally counterintuitive because most people are like, who still buys books? Like, there's like Kindle and blogs, and like people don't read anymore. But actually, the books, because I do publish a lot of stuff that is in public domain. So, like I republish Mark Twain stuff. I've got stuff by Lysander Spooner. And people want to find that because some of this stuff, even though it's online for free, people still love holding paper in their hand when they read. So I wind up making not a lot of passive income from books, but it's a decent amount, and it supplements the amount of money that I make doing a quote unquote day job. So I would say that that's definitely the most successful. Now there's something that Derrick said that I want to touch on about the donation thing. Now, I've had the fans program for several years. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. And Patreon has sort of come up to where it allows you to give perks to your donors. And one of the things that I've started doing for my donors is giving ad-free versions of the podcast. So the 5-minute daily news, I've got 2 ads in there. If you're one of the fans and you donate through Patreon, you get that without the ads, and it's like a 4-minute daily newscast. Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, I take out the 2 90-second ad blocks, so it's a 27-minute podcast instead of 30. So you do wind up getting perks to donate. So there's a reason to donate other than just, yeah, I like Darryl, he's a cool guy. It's, oh, I like Darryl, he's a cool guy. I can listen to his podcast without the ads, and I also get, a free copy of the newspaper and, fill in the blank other perk.
Okay, and Brett?
Well, from the beginning, I didn't have a very good model set up for making money from what I do because the show was really targeted towards high school students. Those were the people that I wanted to listen to.
They don't have money.
They don't have money.
Lunch money, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a liberty movement for kids. There's no money there. So, fortunately, and it's kind of been a blessing and a curse. The show expanded beyond my target audience, beyond that avatar that I was talking to very quickly. After I had only done like a handful of shows, I was interviewed on Free Domain Radio in 2009, and we got like a tenfold increase in the number of listeners we had. And then at the end of the year, my friend Jason Osborne, who was a major sponsor and contributor to Free Talk Live, swapped out his business's ads for School Sucks ads on Free Talk Live, and then we started taking in a bunch of Free Talk Live listeners too. So then we had, by the end of 2009, this very adult libertarian audience of obviously very discerning, high standards people for media consumption between Free Talk Live and Free Domain Radio. So it was good because it helped up my game as far as what I was producing, but it was also, you're kind of drifting away from the target of the show. So even though this ultimately worked out, one of the best pieces of advice I can give is to niche down what you're doing if possible, even if it means setting up multiple projects, and have a clear vision of the person that you're talking to. So for me, I don't have one clear vision, but I still do like to talk to kids. In the future, that would probably be done more through YouTube. But people who are adults who realize that they kind of got ripped off through the government schooling system and even higher education in this country, and people who are interested in educating their own children. And I try to gear content towards them. And in the last few years, I've been able to fund the show entirely through donations. And the way I do that is I just have something called the AV Club, which is kind of, if you've seen Freaks and Geeks, it's for nerds, but it's fairly exclusive. And I didn't know The Onion also had something called the AV Club when I named it that. But it's a bonus content section. If people like your work, if people are following, show by show and interested in what you do, they're also the types of people that would be interested in what else do you do? What goes on behind the scenes? Are you funny? Do you have like a dark sense of humor that you don't present on the show? What do you guys talk about between breaks when you're live? Those kinds of things. So I started basically building this library of bonus content that is now probably, 400 different pieces of things, hundreds and hundreds of hours of stuff that's not in the normal podcast feed. And I say to people on the show, I say, hey, don't pay $6 a month, $9 a month to get access to this stuff, but pay it because you think the message is important, but you also, as an added bonus, all this stuff is there if you want it. And sometimes I promote it. I'll entice people with a 3-minute clip of me and some other media producers in Connecticut having a conversation, behind the scenes, pre-interviews, stuff like that, and I'll just put a 2-minute clip in the podcast and say, oh, hey, if you want this, sign up, and you can hear the whole thing. And that's how I've made money doing the show exclusively, aside from like the $280 I made selling T-shirts 5 years ago. That's been the most successful monetizing venture so far.
Does AV Club, is that an acronym for something really cool?
Audio and video, because that's what's in there.
So yes. And then my most successful monetization has yet to happen, and hence this panel. So Darryl, you mentioned book publishing. How hard
Yes.
is that to get into?
It is incredibly easy because of a lot of the outlets that exist now with print-on-demand publication. And the company that I go through is actually owned by Amazon. So I've got this weird love-hate relationship with Amazon because Amazon does some really horrible things like advocating for a national retail sales tax. But yet Amazon opens up the publishing to independent publishers and people that's like, I've got this really weird book and I think people should read it. And so they go to CreateSpace and they upload the files and, now my book's available on Amazon, and realistically, your book's going to sell less than 100 copies because the average book sells less than 100 copies. And I've given speeches at PorcFest the last couple of years on how to distribute your content. And so, no need to necessarily rehash that here unless you want me to hit some of the highlights. But if you go to YouTube, you can find the speech or speeches that I've done.
Excellent. Okay. And then Derrick J, you mentioned Google AdWords.
Yeah.
How hard is that to get into?
Oh my gosh, it's incredibly easy. You could do it in a minute. If you're watching this video right now, you could probably open up another tab in your browser and go set that up. I don't remember. I think at one point I did have to put in some sort of bank information. Obviously, they send you a check,
They can either direct deposit or send you a physical check.
Right.
But if you get the physical check, then it's a higher threshold of monies.
Yeah, so I chose the direct deposit method years ago, and I haven't had to update anything. And one of the benefits of that is, no matter what you're doing, if you're producing YouTube videos, or if you have a blog, or even if you guest blog other places, you can throw your ads up. You can create banners, you can even have responsive ads, and no matter where your content's going, you can derive some funds from those locations, wherever eyeballs are seeing your work. So
Okay.
yeah, I would say Google AdWords is very easy. And if you're not doing it, there's no reason not to, unless you're really hardcore principled, I don't want to touch fiat, I don't want to be with the Google system,
Or
which
Google
I
is
understand.
horrible.
Yeah, I totally get that, but it's money.
Right. Darryl, you mentioned Patreon, so you're actually already using Patreon?
Yes, I am.
Is it worth it? Because I know they take about 5% out, and then there's also that 3 to 5% that's credit card transaction fees that's taken out.
Yeah, so right now I've got 2 people that are donating their pledge for $25 a month, and I get 22 and change. So, it's worth it. I would say it's worth it primarily because it allows you to give the sort of perks to the people where, I'd been doing the fans program and just, running it myself through PayPal, and I wasn't necessarily able to give people
You'd have to manually give
extra
them perks.
content
Yeah.
as easily. So now when I upload my podcast, I just open up a third tab and upload to Patreon. And, it takes me maybe 5 extra minutes to create the ads-free version. So, there's a little bit of work in it, but it's not a lot. And, boom, there it is.
Let me say this about Patreon and services like it. I was touching earlier on how people who listen, yeah, they want to give, but it is extra work for them to go to a website or go to a QR code, whatever it is. Patreon takes that work out. They just have to do it once. If you're someone who's I really love School Sucks Project, or I love what Darryl's doing, and I want to support his work every time a new video is released, you don't need to check back to see when a new video has been released and throw extra money in. It's done automatically if you set it up once.
Right. So that's one of the ways that people can, is you can set it up to where people give every time you do a thing, or they can give a set amount every month. And because I'm producing content every day, if somebody says, I want to give $1 every time Darryl does something, okay, then you're giving, like, let's see, 12, you're giving $42 a month. And most people aren't going to give $42 a month to an independent media producer just because, well, I like what he does. So I've set it up monthly, and I've got one person right now giving $20 a month and one person giving $5, and then there's still 1 or 2 people that haven't switched over to Patreon that are still donating through PayPal. So I would say I probably get like $40 a month from recurring donors, and every now and then I'll get a little bit of Bitcoin.
This just reminds me, if you want this to be more than a hobby, this conversation about Patreon, having recurring payments set up is really, really important, because somebody could send you a wonderful $150 donation, and you say, great, I hope more of those come eventually, you know? But I usually just ask people for 6. You know, and some people do 9, some people do 12, some people do 15, but I know it's coming every month, right? I have a spreadsheet. I know what my income is every week, which is, if you want to do this for a living, that's like really, really helpful to know how much money you're making a week. And I could imagine it being very, very stressful if I didn't know that. So finding some way to set up, if Patreon offers that, great. I haven't looked into that yet, but it's on my list of things to do. Having a way to predict what is going to come in every week, every month has been obviously super helpful to allow me to shift more of my attention from the schooling support work that I was doing to what I believe is more educational work that I'm able to do through the show. And more of my time has been able to go that way because it's become more predictable.
Great. So, Brett, you've gone the subscription route with your show. And I've heard you say before that your show doesn't lend itself to advertisements or having ads in there.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I just, because of the way I structure the show, there's no breaks. I mean, if we did a live show, which is something I've done before, I guess I could insert ads between every segment, but the show just never had a format where I would find stop points to insert ads. I like it to kind of flow more, and I guess I could do what maybe Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan does, and or Duncan Trussell, and all those guys are pretty entertaining about how, well, definitely Trussell and Joe Rogan are entertaining about how they do it.
does the same, where he just like throws a live read into the middle of the conversation.
See, that I don't like. Like Rogan and Duncan Trussell do it at the beginning of their show, and Duncan Trussell will take 20 minutes. But he's so entertaining. Do people know who Duncan Trussell is? He's got this great voice.
Never heard of him.
Oh, he's really funny. He does something called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, and he'll go on for 20 minutes. But he'll be like, folks, don't go out and go shopping. I mean, people, that's how you die, you know, going out of your house. Like, go to Amazon and enter through our portal. You know, so he has all these like funny stories he'll tell. And that wasn't the best example. He's way funnier than I just made him sound. But all these reasons why you should shop at home and use Amazon.com, how terrible people are, you know, like all those things you don't want to deal with, like actually going to physical retail locations. Rogan can usually do it in like 5 to 10 minutes, and that's just their format, and that works for them. But I've realized I could do that before starting a show. One of the reasons why I don't do it is I want people to believe and invest in the idea that this is a community-funded effort. Right? So if I took on, like someone even offered in the past to just pay me to do the show, and they wanted me to say, this show is brought to you by this person. But when people hear that, they say, oh, thank God. This show is brought to me by that person. I thought I was going to have to do something, you know? Yeah. But when I say this show is made possible by the contributions of the people who listen, then I think that hopefully creates more buy-in. That's been the effect so far, and probably before the end of this year, I am going to start experimenting with advertising. You know, because like I need like a cost of living raise, and the subscriber base has like steadily gone up over time, but sometimes it plateaus, and if it stays that way for too long, it's a little tense. So I am actually starting to think about doing ads in a couple other monetization channels.
Can I brainstorm here for a moment?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So I don't know how many people are familiar. I'm sure everybody in here is familiar with Netflix, but there are other sort of online streaming platforms like HBO has their own thing, HBO Go, and then a lot of the sports leagues have sort of something where you can pay like a fee and then you can watch every NFL game throughout the season, or you can watch every Major League Baseball game. And one of the ones that I subscribe to, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, so I pay the $9.99 every month to WWE so that I can get the WWE network. Something that I think would be something to definitely consider and think about is sort of a libertarian media sort of conglomeration to where it, yes, I realize it's hurting cats because we're all fierce individualists, and a lot of people don't really want to, well, I don't want to have my podcast associated with yours. I'm doing my own thing. But it would be interesting if people could come together and be like, here's the Liberty Media Network, and for a subscriber fee, subscriber fee, LRN's free. There's no subscriber fee to LRN.
LRN Pro.
Yeah. But have some sort of subscriber fee and then figure out a way to divvy up the money between the various people that say, I will let you put all of my archives on your site and do this. I think it definitely is something that people might be interested in because, I really love what Brett's doing, and I want all of his content, and there's other stuff that I might be interested in. And so then they go and, they find out, here's Derrick J's thing, and here's this, and here's that. And
I'd love to get money from Brett's subscribers. That'd be great. But yeah, no, there's definitely a market for it. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, LRN Pro. We need to work on that.
Or if you have a niche, like setting up something like the Educational Freedom Network, where I could get find a couple volunteers. It's comb through Lou Rockwell's archives or Tom Wood's archives or Freedom Main's archives and find shows about education, schooling, peaceful parenting, whatever, and actually just build a database of shows that could play in a rotation, something like that. And it could be sold to other people by just saying, hey, your show will get promoted and played here. But then you have to be able to build an audience for that too in order to entice other people to basically let you use their content for free. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. We are clearly brainstorming in front of an audience right now, but this is a good idea.
Network works is they've got a 24/7. They've got a 24/7 streaming thing, so you can go and they've always got something streaming. Plus, they have the library where you can go back and watch every pay-per-view that's ever happened. You can watch old WCW stuff, old WWF, WCCW. They've got this vast, huge library with tens of thousands of hours of content. And some people buy it just so they can go watch old, 1982 Ric Flair. Woo! But then there's all of the live content, the new content, and it's all there. So I think it's definitely something that, if done properly, a LRN Pro or whatever the hell we're going to call this thing, it could definitely work to where people are actually working together to promote each other through some sort of thing and get paid.
There you go. So, Darryl, I think it's fair to say your work ethic scares most people in this room because you're just constantly cranking out content. How do you optimize your time in order to produce stuff on a regular basis like you do?
I put myself on a schedule, and I absolutely hate rigorous schedules. I would much rather wind up just being able to decide on a whim, I want to go do this. But I work every morning and every night, so I'll write the newscast every night before I go to bed. So sometime between 9:30 and 10:15, I'm sitting down writing the news. Wake up early in the morning, record the news, upload it. I do affiliate relations for Free Talk Live, so Monday through Friday, I'm making phone calls until 1 o'clock. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, after I get done making affiliate relations phone calls, I'll grab a quick bite to eat and then record Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, get that uploaded, and then I'll give myself a couple hours to relax. So, like I throw in relaxation time in pretty much every day a little bit. Even, that relaxation might be sitting there playing on Facebook, but like I'm not doing actual work, if you will, although every now and then I'll be like, oh, this is a news story that I need to put in my show prep folder because it's something that I think needs to be talked about. So like I'm always, even when I'm relaxing, I'm kind of still working, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Did you continue to report the news to the other inmates during your 3 days off?
No, because all I had was a book about dragons, which was actually a really interesting book. It was the Master Harper of Pern. Apparently there were like 22 books in this series, and I read one of them when I was in jail, and then I read A Brave New World, which is a very depressing book if you ever read it. And being in jail is probably not the best place to read that book. But yeah, I like napped and read books when I was in jail. And it was like the only days off that I've had in like the last year.
Now we know how to get Darryl to take a break. It's just put him in jail.
Yes.
So when I first moved to the Shire, I got a good chunk of freelance video editing work. And that's pretty much the only money I've made from being Shire Dude is that. Is there any freelance work that you guys have considered doing based on the skills you've got from this media endeavor? Starting with Brett.
Well, I think that as far as what I've considered doing, I think there's lots of people both in the, who are working within the philosophy of liberty and beyond in education that could use a little help, maybe having a podcasting presence. For example, there's a blog on Psychology Today called Free to Learn. And it's written by this guy, Peter Gray, who's a professor at Boston College. And I've thought a couple times about, we have some common connections, and I thought a couple times about going down and meeting him and saying, hey, your blog is great. What would it be worth to you if I read it into audio files and made it available on iTunes? Because a lot more people could probably see this, in addition to who already sees it, if it had a format like that. So that's one thing that I would consider doing if it could be made worth my time. Yeah. I like to think about each hour of my time, and this also helps me be productive, is worth a certain amount of money. And I think about what it was worth each hour in the world of fake education, and that was considerable, like in tutoring. And so I've lowered it like more than half that. But
so to like an actual free market value.
Yeah. Well, no, I was never paid by the government. I always worked privately, but I would describe myself as a tutor doing SAT tutoring or academic tutoring. You're kind of like a private enforcer. You're kind of like the Blackwater of the public school system. Is that what the Blackwater?
Blackwater was getting government monies, though.
All right. Well,
they've since changed their name to Z, which is spelled XE.
Nice.
Which should not be confused with the currency rate website, xe.com, that's where I get my silver and gold spot prices. Totally not connected to what used to be Blackwater.
But
not at all.
Is that an ad?
No. It sounded like an ad, but that was not an ad. I was
my
not
Blackwater
paid to say that.
one was, yeah. I guess I haven't talked to their marketing people in a while, though.
Oh, Linko Bearcats.
But the thing that I've just started doing is promoting my services as a tutor or a mentor through the show, because those are people who, if they're already just listening to me talk about this stuff and they have problems they would like resolved or issues they would like to work through with somebody else that are education related or self-education related, I've just started to put it out there that, hey, get in touch with me. If I can, we'll have a console. If I can help you, I will, and we'll figure out something that works for both of us. And I have my first client that way. So I guess that's kind of freelance work related to what I do. But I think that could be expanded. In the new year, we're going to start developing a course on how to go from being an employee to working for yourself, and hopefully grow more courses that people pay for from there. So that's probably how that's the new monetization direction that we're going to go in.
Kind of like a Udemy or...
Yeah, but pretty self-contained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Derrick?
Yeah, I've done freelance work based on the stuff that I've done in the past. People see my YouTube videos of doing activism, and they say, "I want a video of that. Will you bring your camera and go shoot this and edit a video together?" So that's been one successful avenue. Also, video editing is a skill that anyone could learn, but it takes a lot of time. And most people just don't want to do it. They have a vision in their head of what they want a video to look like. If you can produce that for them, there's money in that for you, and it's a skill that anyone could pick up or teach yourself. So that's something also that I've done freelance for money, making tutorial videos, doing voiceovers for videos, stuff like that.
Yeah, video editing. All you really need is a nice program, and then you're set. Like I use
some time. It takes time to do.
Yeah, a nice program and time. I use a Cyberlink Power Director. I think you use Sony Vegas. Right?
I started on Sony Vegas, and currently I use Adobe Premiere, which I like and recommend because it works well both on Mac and PC, so it doesn't matter where you're working.
All right. Darryl?
I would say that most of the quote-unquote freelance work that I do has absolutely nothing to do with media. I'll do pretty much anything moral and ethical for some amount of money. So I'll house sit for people. I was a temporary pig farmer when Mark Edge took a trip back in the spring. I pig sat something like 40 pigs, including one little sickly pig named Spike that liked to cuddle with me, and he peed on me once. But he was a little sick pig. He was the runt of the litter, and he died after about 3 days, and that was incredibly sad. Taking care of a baby pig and then having it die on you. But I'll pig sit for money. I'll rake leaves. I'll edit your blog if you want me to. I'll edit your book if you want me to for the right price. But most of the freelance stuff that I do, it's house sitting, doing odd jobs for people. Marriages, I've done several of those. Recently did a civil disobedience wedding where the couple getting married did not have a license from the state, and that is punishable. The person presiding over the marriage can be punished with a fine of $60 in Pennsylvania. I also did not charge them the state-mandated fee, which is also punishable by $60, and I will gladly sit 2 days in the Cheshire County House of Corrections if anybody wants to charge me for that. And then yesterday I did the auction, and I don't have a license, and that technically is a misdemeanor. So I'll take that to trial too if anybody at the prosecutor's office wants to charge me. Love to see you in court.
Just making vacation time for yourself.
Exactly. I want a vacation. Charge me with something.
All right, we're, I think, roughly halfway through, so if you guys want to start lining up to ask questions, it doesn't have to be related to monetization specifically. I know we're focusing on that. Anything media related, anything at all. And I'm going to ask a couple more questions here. How do you get, I'm going to start with Derrick J on this one. How do you, because I've done shows with you before, and I've always been really excited to work with you. How do you get people to be excited to work with you?
I don't know, you be fun, you produce good content. I try and always bring my A game to whatever show that I'm going to be on, because I know this is an opportunity to grab up new listeners, introduce myself to people who are going to be seeing me for the first time, and expose them to ideas that they probably have never heard before, and be original. So it's a challenge, but I do try and meditate on and prepare for wherever I'm going to be. I think I've been on everyone's show here before, and I think they've gone well. So yeah, I don't know. You just prepare, know your audience, know what you're getting into, and try and bring something original that you think the audience has never heard before.
Darryl?
Yeah, I have to agree. Be original, present the ideas from a perspective that is otherwise not being filled. One thing that I love doing is interviews, but I don't really do those anymore because it was so stressful trying to find interesting people to interview on a weekly basis when I was doing the live Sunday version of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. And I would always try to schedule my guests like a month out. And I would always send reminders a week before, and there were several times, several weeks in a row where the guest just flaked on me. And so that is very frustrating, where you're expecting like, okay, I'm going to have a guest during this second hour. I don't need to find show prep. And then all of a sudden, all right, now I've got to fill an hour of radio, and I have absolutely no clue what I'm going to talk about. So like during the news break, you're scrambling to find stuff.
Yeah, and we're spoiled too, because we're in the Shire where there are like people physically here to, oh, come on my show,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I would love to do interviews again, but the way I produce my content is I do it on a consistent basis. I love doing consistent, regular content. And I wouldn't want to start an interview series and then go 2 months without an interview, because then it's like, the sporadic whatever. So the last interview that I did on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, I actually just called a special episode. And it's the only episode of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio that is not a set time, where I sat down with Chris Freeman and we just started talking. And then once I realized that the conversation was pretty much over, I played a closing music bed and had like 45 seconds to close the show. So, if I do interviews again, I'll just call it a special episode and slap it up commercial free.
Bonus content for your
Bonus
subscribers.
content.
Yeah. All right, Brett?
So the question is how to attract people to your show.
How do you get people excited to work with you?
Well, I think that a great way to do it is to go to events and meet people and establish some rapport with them and see what they're trying to do. And so just a recent example that I had, something I was really happy with, and it actually turned into quite a bit of content. There's this Canadian YouTuber, her name is Julia Turganskaya, and
she's Russian.
She lives in Canada. She's originally Russian, hence the Turganskaya. And she, we met at PorkFest. We were in a roast together. Darryl was there, and her and I sat next to each other. We talked a little bit. We exchanged like, this is what I do, this is what I do. And it was enough of a rapport that we had a couple of Skypes like in preparation for doing a show where we just talked and got to know each other. And anytime you can do that. And then we wound up doing like 4 hours of content that I had to edit down to make 2 shows. And it was hugely successful. And I've had tons of experiences like that. How did I meet you? Do you remember?
No.
I don't either. It's the kind of thing that you would think would be more memorable for both of us.
But
Probably PorkFest.
We ended up doing a fun episode together, long distance, I think, as we did that over the airwaves, where I was in the Free Talk Live studio with Michelle Seven, and you were in your studio in perhaps Manchester at the time. We actually did a long distance episode.
That's
You
right.
guys also did that like 5-hour version of Freedom Fiends that wound up getting called The Dawn of Liberty.
Well, we knew each other very well by then.
Yeah, but see, that was a great example of the kind of thing that can happen at an event. The last year at PorkFest, Derrick and I both appear on this show called The Freedom Fiends. And when Freedom Fiends ended, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were having such a great time. I said, let's keep going. And it was Derrick, Davi Barker,
and
MK Lords. And we recorded until how interesting. This guy showed up at like 8 a.m. to kick us out. And
I need to record the news, guys.
It was the greatest PorkFest experience of my life. We had so much fun. And so now, like, if I just needed someone, like, I got to get a show done, I'll call Davi, I'll call Derrick, I'll call MK. You know, those kinds of relationships are made at those events. So anytime I have a chance to go anywhere here, I was just at Liberty Fest a few weeks ago, just being face to face, making eye contact with people, sharing a few laughs, sharing a few drinks if you drink, and establishing that rapport and really kind of being attuned to what their goals are and what their needs are. You can build certainly a Rolodex of people to get on your show. It's a little more challenging if you're really niche down like I am into education. I've gotten a little sloppy over the last year. It's like, oh well, I'll do a show about anything that can be seen as educational, and I'm kind of like tightening it up a little bit. So when people come to our website, they'll be very clear what our mission is. You know, like the Dawn of Freedom, as fun as it was, really doesn't fit the School Sucks mission. Doesn't mean I won't do it again, and I've got a place to put stuff like that. But I think that's the most important thing is meeting people. You know.
I have one thing I want to add. Getting people excited to work with you. I try not to let the microphones get in our way when producing work. Like, just continue to be yourself. Not like just, yes, you're also being recorded. Yes, other people are going to listen to this. But it's really more hanging out and, you know, just experiencing the other person, having a dialogue. Like, one of the things I really like about Brett's studio, or the one I formerly visited, it was like it's a living room. I'm hanging
cozy.
out. I'm talking with Brett. It's like we're just having an iced tea and having a general conversation. Also, when it's over, he's going to cut it up, edit it, and put it out for others to hear. But it's you try and forget the environment in that way, and I find that to be the most exciting.
So keeping it real.
Keep it real. That's a good way to put it.
And Brett will be keeping it real over the lunch break in the live recorded version of Black Sheep Rising that's happening in the back of the room while people are eating lunch.
Cool. Oh wow! In this room?
Yes, you did remember that you told Conan you would be on the show.
No,
right?
I'm super excited. I can't wait. I'm glad that there's going to be like
He's
an audience.
excited
That's
to work
terrific.
with Conan. There you go.
Yeah,
We should get him on
I'm
this panel.
excited to build rapport with you guys at an event.
Actually, it's not Brett that goes on Black Sheep Rising. It's Brett Veinotte that goes on Black Sheep Rising.
Being on other people's shows and contributing something to their shows too is another, especially once you have a show and you have an audience, people appreciate that. And just like cross-pollination is good generally. I'm shameless.
That's how flowers grow.
I just invite myself on other people's shows. I moved to Keene. I lived in Keene from like January to the end of July last year. I got here. I said to like Puke and Andrew and Nick Ryder, I'd like to be a regular on your show. I went to Ian. I said I'd like to be a co-host on Free Talk Live.
You invited yourself on to Freedom Fiends too. You reached out to me too. You were saying, I've been listening to Freedom Fiends. Hey, I'd really like that show. It would be great. You know, what if we could do one together one day?
So this is all.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. So
we did.
If nobody wants you on their show, like by now, no one would even know that. It seems like I've been wanted on all these shows. It was because I took the initiative to invite myself.
Foot in the door. I like it.
Like,
Yeah.
what time
I like
do
it.
you record? Because I'll be in your studio.
Right. Mic'd or not. Okay, so we got a question from the audience.
Curious what it's like dealing with Liberty sponsors. Is there a certain threshold at which you need to be popular enough for them to work with you? And what is that experience like compared to working with traditional things like AdSense? Thanks.
Darryl?
As I said earlier, I'm horrible at selling ads. The one sponsor that I have that is actually paying, because I do have a couple where I do like bartered sort of things where I give them ads, they give me ads. I happened to have called up the girl that was working in the office because I knew her, and I was like, hey, so I know the company that you're working for advertises in a lot of Liberty stuff. Do you think Roberts & Roberts would want to advertise with me? And they were like, well, send us your rates. And I was like, okay. So I sent the rates, and you know, I've got the one ad that basically covers the printing of the newspaper. And I would love to have more ads, but I would rather focus time on creating stuff than, you know, like begging for money. So like I don't call up advertisers. the way I should. Like, I definitely need to talk to Mark Warden and be like, hey, Mark, I know you like to throw money around. Here's my rate sheet. Tell me how much ads you want. And I'll probably do that at some point when I see Mark. And, hopefully. But I would say that having regular advertisers that give you a set amount of money every month, it's a lot better for, being able to budget than relying on AdSense of, okay, well, hopefully I get this many hits to my website. And one thing that I will say, that relying on things like AdSense encourages clickbait. And I think clickbait is the worst thing ever. And if you go to my website, I will tell you why. Actually, I'm joking. I don't have that article, but I think it would be a brilliant clickbait article. But clickbait is horrible, and something that a lot of websites are doing now is they'll do these lists of, here's 12 things you need to know about fill in the blank. And they have each one on a different effing page, and it's because of the whole, you get money from AdSense based on total clicks onto the website. So if you make people click on 15 things to read 5, then, well, you've got a lot more clicks. And if somebody clicks one link and goes, and here's the entire list of 15 things or 5 or whatever. So AdSense encourages clickbait, and clickbait needs to die a very quick death, much quicker than the death suffered by Joffrey Baratheon in Game of Thrones.
And people should really up their standards on that too, because all these clickbait articles need, and this is wildly successful on the internet, and all they need is good titles. And then the content is usually junk.
And it's sort of a Mad Lib sort of title. It's either, here's X number of things you need to know about Y, or blank happened, you'll never guess what happened next. Just think about almost every clickbait title, it's one of those two sort of, like insert noun.
Yeah, and you learn to tune those out after a while.
Yeah.
Well, some of us do.
There are websites that I will not visit because of the clickbait sort of stuff. Even if it's a headline that's not a clickbait headline, and it's something that I would otherwise want to read, if it's from a certain website, I will not go there.
To the question of working with
That's one of them.
Liberty sponsors versus something like Google AdWords, I would say I feel more of the people who donate, who are part of the Liberty community, or people who buy ads, they're doing it more. I know they want viewers, they want people to go and buy their product, but I think there's also the
Philanthropy sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like, I like what you're doing, I believe in the vision, even if this sees only 300 eyeballs versus 3,000, they're the right kind of eyeballs. Like Google doesn't care who sees your work, they just want numbers. And they don't care if you're producing something moral or completely evil. But the Liberty sponsors, I feel more of an obligation to produce quality work for them, whereas I don't care as much if it's just something like Google. So I would say it's harder to do, and it's more worthwhile. And of course I want to have big numbers for them as well. So it's more of a challenge, and it's more satisfying, better payoff too.
Yeah, I know most mainstream sponsors, as opposed to Liberty sponsors, most of the mainstream guys won't even look at a YouTube channel with under 1,000 subscribers. Whereas I think Liberty sponsors will sponsor someone who's got a lot lower subscriber rate.
Well, yeah, and it's also amazing who's going to see this stuff. There was one caller into Free Talk Live where I was co-hosting, and he said, "Oh, I saw this awesome episode that you did of Freedom Singularity, a show that I think only had 30 views, something really small. We only did one episode, but like I said, it's the right kind of eyeballs who are seeing the work that's being produced by Liberty media producers." So the people who sponsor that know that the payoff is going to be greater, even if it's not high numbers. It's quality.
Okay. Another question?
Hey guys. By the way, thank you to everybody for showing up this early in the morning. So my name's Brian Henchy. I've worked in radio before. I have two questions. One is, Derrick J., you mentioned you make your money from three things. I didn't hear the first one. The second one was Google Ads, and the third one was donation. So what was number one?
Liberty sponsors, selling ads, so going out and reaching out to, I listen to LRN.FM all the time. And so I'm hearing, who's sponsoring stuff, who's putting out ads, that I'll go reach out to them and say, I produce this work. Is this something you'd be interested in supporting? And so I listen to who's donating to other ads and just reach out to them.
Yeah, and that's actually, I worked briefly for a regionally syndicated talk radio show, and the mailroom manager wanted me to call up or basically listen to other shows and cannibalize their ads, like kind of write down everybody who advertises with them and try to get their ads. So anyway, my other question was, could each of you hit again on which video editing package that you use and how much it costs? Thanks.
I don't do a lot of video editing myself because I tend to prefer doing audio and print. But when I do video editing, the software that I use most often is an open source program called OpenShot, and it's not the greatest. There are definitely better programs, but as far as free softwares, it's one of the better free softwares. There's also Kden Live, which is KDEN Live. It's another open source. It's okay. I recently did some work at the local community access television station, and I used, I think it was Adobe Premiere, and it's amazing. I loved it. Like, I want to marry Adobe Premiere. That's how much I love this program, because it made the editing so easy. And it was wonderful and a lot better than any open source thing. And I have no clue how much it cost because I was using it at, the community television thing.
I use Sony Vegas Pro 10, and there's probably like a version 13 or 14 by now. I dabbled with Premiere, but I thought even after having a considerable amount of video editing experience, like the things that I need to do in video editing, it's not just, putting in and cutting things out. There's a lot.
Yeah, that's all I was doing is like trim the beginning, trim the end, throw the show titles, and it was super simple, easy stuff that I was doing.
Right. So I mean, when I make a video, I don't make as many videos, but I've stuck with Vegas just because I'm very, very comfortable using it. I would say out of all of the higher end ones, which would be the Apple Final Cut, Adobe Premiere, I don't know if there's
There's Pinnacle, that's another high-end. I don't know who puts that out.
Or if there's an Avid version for users. Like all of those things, Sony Vegas, I gotta think, has the easiest user interface. It's the fastest to learn. It's super, super intuitive. And like if you're just like, oh, if I did this, it should do that, and it does it, and it's great. So I recommend to somebody who's starting with video editing to try Vegas. It's a good running start. And all of the interfaces are similar enough with the higher end editors that I guess if you did have the time and the discipline to move from Vegas to Premiere, you could. I mean, I kind of looked at, to be as good at Premiere as I wanted to be, I was going to have to take a couple weeks off and learn it to know it as good as Vegas. And then with Premiere, you've also got After Effects, Adobe After Effects that you have to learn how to use. So the only problem with Sony Vegas, and this is really important, so I'll say it, is that the title creators don't work very well. So I actually create text titles in Photoshop and then just import them into the project. And it's cool that even though Vegas is not an Adobe product, they sync up really well, and you can go back into Photoshop and edit something, and then it just flips to the new version that you've imported to Vegas, which is really, really handy. And the titles are just much crisper and sharper, and you can get more effects tweaking them, and like the the blending options in Photoshop than the options they give you in Vegas. So the combination of those two programs is how I get things done.
Yeah, I've used a variety of video editing software, my favorite of which is Adobe Premiere. Like I said, it plays well with other systems. Another great benefit of Adobe products is that they work well with each other. So if you're importing something from Photoshop, you don't even need to render it down into a JPEG. You can just drop a Photoshop file right into Adobe Premiere and it'll read it and know what to do with all the layers. That's really cool. As far as pricing, you can get Adobe Premiere for as little as $20 a month, and this is not a paid advertisement for Adobe, and it's well worth it.
Now, let me go full politician here and answer the question that wasn't asked. For audio, I use Audacity, which is an open source free product, works on Windows, Linux, Mac, anything else, if there is anything else. Like it works on everything, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I use Audacity for any audio work that I do. And you can go on YouTube and find little tutorials that kids make on how to get a specific effect, like a DJ scratching sound effect, or how to make someone sound like they have a demon voice or something. There's tons of videos on YouTube that help with Audacity. For a video editor, I ended up buying a Cyberlink Power Director. I believe I bought it on Amazon, of course by going through shop.freetalklive.com. And I would not recommend it for a beginner. It's very frustrating.
And since Adobe, the Adobe suite was mentioned earlier, there is Adobe Audition that it's got a lot of features that Audacity does not have, but the newest version of Audition I don't like as much as the older version of Audition, so I don't use Audition anymore. I only use Audacity now.
One of the biggest time sucks with Audacity is that you have to stop every time you want to cut something. And most of on a video editor like Sony Vegas, you don't have to do that. Sometimes if I know I've got a huge editing project to do, I'll just import a file in Sony Vegas and just chop it as I go and then drag the parts out that I don't want. Because even if you're I'll play something back on 1.5 times speed when I'm editing it, and every show that I do I edit, but that is the one, even though Audacity is free and it's fairly easy to use and understand the effects menu, stopping every time you make a cut, if you're the type of guy or gal who doesn't like ums and ahs or long pauses or breath sounds, you're adding a lot of time to your production that way. So
yeah, I pull out, when I do the newscast, I pull out all of my breaths, pull out all of the pauses between sentences, and yeah, it takes me about 30, 45 minutes to record and produce a 5-minute newscast, which most people probably think, 5-minute newscast, that takes, 5 minutes? No, it takes half an hour to 45 minutes.
Okay. And then I've got one more question for the panelists, and if anyone wants to ask any questions right up here, maybe a final two. Brett touched on this earlier. Brett gave probably the best answer already, so we're going to exclude him right now. He said the best platform for meeting with people, with working with people, is real life, is actually face-to-face connection. What's the best platform for a connection with your listeners? What is your favorite platform to use?
To connect with my listeners, I would have to say in real life and over a glass of wine. I don't know. I'm a workaholic hermit. I don't go places very often. There are two events that I go to on a weekly basis that get me out of the house. I do trivia nights every Tuesday with a couple of friends here in Keene, and I go to Social Sunday on Sunday. And then, if there's some kind of event like this, I'll show up. Otherwise, I'm sitting in a corner somewhere doing something related to work. So, I'm the worst person to ask this question of. But yeah, events.
All right, Derrick?
Twitter is the best for interacting with listeners, because
you can't have intelligent conversations on Twitter.
Hear me out. If you're on different shows, you're Twitter handle stays the same. Even though I'm doing Cop Block Radio and listeners know how to find me there, or if they find me in the LRN chat room, or if they find me on Skype because they can call into the show. People even have called into the Cop Block Radio number and left messages. So there's a variety of ways that people can interact with you. But for me, the most interaction has happened on Twitter, probably because the messages go there, they stay there, and other people can interact with it as well. And it's easy to just throw on a Twitter handle whenever you're on someone's show, and it's easy for them to find you there.
I would say that
you were excluded from this question.
No, go ahead. This sounds terrible. It sounds awful.
Go for it.
The worst way to interact with listeners, it's not the worst way. It's just there's a caveat about face-to-face interactions with like at events like Liberty Forum or PorcFest, because you can wind up spending a lot of time talking to one person when there's a lot of people that you'd like to be able to talk to. Did that sound awful?
No. Oh, no, I totally understand.
And so I've had, because the show is about school, a lot of times like someone will come up to me and they want to talk about a school experience that they had or their child had. And for me, the event is about being more social. And I think the best way to do it for me, I agree with what Derrick said about Twitter, but it's Facebook, right? Because people will send me emails, but they wrote it and then I see it. And that's really not optimal, because there's people in my audience who are smarter than me, who have better insights than I do. So if someone sends me an email and it's more than like 2 or 3 paragraphs long, I'll say, hey, if you're on Facebook, join our Facebook group and just post this there. And a bunch of people will see it. Because
you've got a bunch of really smart people in that School Sucks group on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would always like to get things in front of their eyes, and I think that's part of the thing with events is like, PorcFest comes to mind. So someone came up to me, we were up all night doing the show, and then the next morning, a listener came up to me, and he had come from Maryland. Remember that? We were eating breakfast in your hotel. And he's like, oh, I wanted to meet you. And I was like, dude, I've been up for, 30 hours. I'm starving. There's nothing here to eat. I can't think straight. And it was a shame. And eventually I did connect with the guy, but it just was not the optimal conditions for having a serious conversation with this person who was a School Sucks fan. And I felt bad about that. Those events are kind of like overwhelming. There's so many people to socialize with, especially if you do a podcast or have a YouTube channel. People know who you are. And some people can handle it better than others. I picture Derrick just being phenomenal at it, just strutting through the crowd, high-fiving people. And for me, like, I just don't do as well in those. I'm not bad at it, but it can be overwhelming, and I worry about not giving people the attention or consideration that they deserve, because there's just so much going on.
Dr. Darren Tapp has a question.
Yes, so this is not directly about monetization, but it's related. So numbers. Okay, like you produce content, it's out there, and you might not get that many viewers or listeners or readers. Or what do you do to increase the numbers? What are the tricks of the trade there?
I don't know. Hopefully somebody has some advice for me. Let me sort of say this, that I try putting my content, as far as the audio content, on as many platforms as possible. I've got one of literally a handful of Liberty podcast that is available on iHeartRadio. So I don't know how many people listen to iHeartRadio. Like, I know millions of people have downloaded the app, but I don't know how many people are listening to non-music content on iHeartRadio. But it's there. Somebody could stumble across it.
So being on multiple platforms?
So being on multiple platforms, there was one of the podcasts that I did about a year ago that I don't know what happened, but this thing blew up, and I had like 63,000 people that listened to this 1 5-minute newscast. That's definitely the most listened to podcast that I've ever had, and I wish I knew how to replicate that. My guess is some outlet somewhere posted a link to it, and it just sort of went viral. But it was talking about one of the news stories that I had, and I'm guessing this is the story that caused it to go viral, was about the Kent State t-shirt being sold at the Gap, where it looked like it had bloodstains, and they're like, you have to pull that because bad taste. And they're like, we didn't even realize, oh yeah, that is red, and that does look like a blood spot. Okay, we'll remove it. That's the only thing I can think of that I covered in that newscast that would cause anything to go viral. So yeah, I would say the main thing is getting it on as many platforms as possible.
Work on your titles, I would say. So like I posted this video with Jeffrey Tucker that I thought was really good. I put on YouTube, and it was like Jeffrey Tucker, Politics, Personal Liberty, and You was the title of it. So if nobody watches that, you want to go back in and change the title to something like, could what you don't know about Jeffrey Tucker kill you? That's clickbait.
Clickbait.
For
People
me,
that do clickbait need to be stabbed in the eyeballs with rusty needles.
good heavens. For me, I'll go back to having the Facebook group, right? I really think that this is superior to mailing lists, and there's people who know more about marketing that might disagree with me. But when you post in a Facebook group, it depends on, like, some people have better open rates for mailing lists than other people, but anybody who's going past the news feed, who's a regular participant in that group, is going to see what you post. Your face is right there, your profile picture, and you can post and say, hey, here's a video I just made. You can say it's already open, right? As long as they're scrolling through their news feed on Facebook, they don't have to click anything. They can see that you want something from them and what it is, and then all they have to do is click the video or the podcast. And I'll post things. So I have a Facebook group. We have a Facebook fan page. I have a Twitter. And if something is really important to me about getting visibility, I won't hesitate to post it 2 or 3 times. And also, like, a lot of people have said in marketing that if you have a core of 1,000 people, that's really what you need to continue to grow. But even if you just have like a mailing list, like a special mailing list of super fans that has 20 people on it, and you say, hey, this is really important to me, guys. And these are people who have always delivered for you before. Say, hey, you've always been there for me before. If you could just post this on your Facebook or tweet it or, share it and say something about it, if you like it. That would be, so you can have it narrowed into a really specific group of people who would be happy to do that work for you. And then my Facebook group has 1,500 people. And I'm pretty selective, like when I add somebody to the group, and everybody who has a show should have a group for that show, I think. When somebody asks to join the group, if it says they've been a member of Facebook since January 2014 and they're in 300 groups, I'm not letting them in my group. This is just a person who likes to be in groups. But if they've been a member of Facebook since 2007 and they're in 4 groups, that means they want to be in my group. That means that's the kind of person that I would want to add to a mailing list because they're the people who would open mails from me if they have that amount of interest in being in my group. So create a group, be selective about who you allow in it, and I really believe that you have something better than a traditional marketing mailing list if you do that, and that is a great way to promote content. I don't know as much about Twitter as Derrick does. I don't do as much on Twitter as you've done, but for me, that has been the biggest success with promoting content by far.
Something that hasn't been mentioned for getting numbers up is visuals. Like if you are even if you're posting audio, make an attractive image that will help sell this audio so that when you're posting it to places like Facebook and Twitter, it's not just a text-based post, it's something that catches someone's eye as they're scrolling through Facebook or whatever. Taking the time to make those images is really important. Also, you mentioned cross-platform, being on multiple platforms. This is a no-brainer. If you are spending any amount of time putting out either an audio or a video product, take the extra 5 minutes or whatever it's going to take to also put it on the other platform. So if it's, for example, something like Neocash Radio, I would say take 5 minutes and put up an image, make that a YouTube video and put it on YouTube. It's just as easy for people to access. A lot of people who listen to audio content, or they do it through YouTube. You know, sometimes people who listen to Stefan Molyneux, you know, they only listen to his audio product, even though he produces videos from these things. So being on both is really important because your audience is in different places.
And there's systems that will automatically put your audio onto YouTube.
Yeah.
So I upload all of my content to SoundCloud and Spreaker, plus a couple of different networks that take the stuff through FTP, and then I've got the fans only commercial free version. But Spreaker has a thing to where they're the ones that get it on iHeartRadio. They automatically upload everything to my YouTube channel.
Another important thing that I don't think was mentioned yet is following trends. Darryl touched on what's going viral. Like, if you could just borrow, just before you post or come up with a title, like, go out and scour the net for what is viral right now and see if you can attach yourself and see if your audio content is matching anything that's what's in there, and reference it or put it in one of the tags. Because I've been really successful with doing that, where like a Peace News Now episode might have only had 300, 400 listeners for that one audio episode, but then on the video aspect on YouTube, you know, had an attractive image and it referenced, I think, Malcolm X or whatever, whoever was in the news at the time. It got like 40,000 views on YouTube versus the 400 or whatever listeners. So getting numbers up in all of those ways should be helpful.
Just to reinforce what Derrick said about images, what I did for so long, and this was super frustrating to me, on the School Sucks fan page, I would go and grab images from like Imgur, right? Imager, and I would post them to the group, and like 90 people, 100 people, 150 people would like them. And that took me 4 seconds. So then I would go and post something that I worked on for 10 hours, and 3 people would like it. And it was infuriating, you know? But then what I did was I just started, instead of taking the code from YouTube or the code from Podomatic, which hosts my podcast, I would make an image, even if it was just a screen grab from a YouTube video or some kind of special image that I made, post that with just a link, not the preview that Facebook generates, but just put that link to the actual content with an image that I made. And it went from like maybe an average of a frustrating 5 or 6 likes to consistently like 30, 40, 50 likes. Just because people are stopping because they see an image. People like pictures of you, you know, or him or me. If they listen,
But not me.
all of us.
Apparently.
If they listen to our shows and they see our faces, especially if we're with somebody else and we're having a good time, they stop. They say, "I know that guy," and then they click like. It's just that's how it's worked. So I absolutely agree that the visual aspect is very, very important for people to getting to stop and to look at it. Yeah.
And one thing that I've implemented, and this isn't necessarily directly connected to the question, but it's something that, you know, like I feel needs to be said. We did talk a little bit about audience participation, of how do you interact with the audience, but not necessarily how does the audience interact with your show. And Brett, I think you do like listener emails sort of things every now and then. And something that I've started doing, and I've been doing for about a year, is a weekly Ask Me Anything, to where people can submit questions. And when I first started doing this, I was thinking, you know, like people are going to be asking philosophical questions of, Darryl, what's your opinion on XYZ policy? But I've been getting really weird questions. I did like an entire episode earlier in the year about bee sex, because somebody asked the question, how do bees have sex without stinging each other? And so I researched, and I love researching and learning. So I researched and found out everything I could about how bees reproduce. And there was a question last week. There's a Twitter account, OMG Facts. And one of the things that they tweeted was a court in Massachusetts ruled that a sandwich has 2 pieces of bread with meat or some other filling in the middle. And so the question was, can you tell me how this came about? And so I did like half a show on this court ruling from 2006 in Massachusetts, where Panera was suing the landlord of a strip mall because a Qdoba Mexican restaurant was going to come in, and they're like, we have an exclusivity clause that we're the only people in this area that can sell sandwiches, and you can't sell to another restaurant. And the court decided that tacos and burritos are not sandwiches because they don't have two slices of bread. Tortillas aren't bread. So like I get really weird things like that, and it causes me to do research, which I absolutely love. And it's really interesting topics, and it's not necessarily, just like me throwing liberty at people for 30 minutes. And people love it because I've actually had people say, like, I can't believe you actually answered this question.
You'll never guess what the legal definition of a sandwich is. Yeah, definitely touching on what Brett said, images go way farther on Facebook than anything else. The algorithm favors images and also the word congratulations, so congratulate yourself on a regular basis. And touching on what Darryck J said, trends, following trends, or seeing what kind of trends you mention in your work. For instance, the most viewed video of Shire Dude is Dogefest, because I mentioned Dogecoin, and that made it to the front page of the Dogecoin Reddit. I ended up getting like tens of thousands of Dogecoins donated to me.
23 cents.
Yeah, it was worth like very little, but still, it was really exciting. And to this day, I have a bunch of Dogecoin, and because of the Dogecoin community, its strength and resilience. So real fast, where can people find you and your work?
They can find everything is linked from fpp.cc. The audio is all at fppradio.com. And then I've got a ton of other projects that I don't think all of them are linked from FPP or FPP Radio. Like I've got Shire Leaks, which is a New Hampshire open records thing. Basically, like it's designed to sort of mimic WikiLeaks, but it's designed for New Hampshire open records. So I've got that, and then DarrylWperry.com, and I'm sure I'm forgetting about 3 or 4 websites. Ballotfairness.info, I think is another one.
Brett?
My website is schoolsucksproject.com, and everything I do shows up there in one way or another. We also have a YouTube channel. School Sucks Podcast is the username, and my Twitter is @SchoolSucksShow.
On Twitter I'm at Darryl W. Perry, Darryl W. Perry, Perry.
My name, for those who have just been introduced today, is Darryck J. Freeman, and if you like audio-video content that is as sexy as it is seditious, you can find all of my work at thedarrickj.com.
Cool. And this...
I didn't have a tagline.
Oh, man. Do you want to say a tagline now? Make one up, or...
No, I wish just listening to this guy, I just wish I had thought of one before we sat down. Sexy as it is seditious?
That's pretty good. I need a tagline too. You can find all my work at shiredude.com, and thanks for watching the panel. Send me all your Doge.
Aren't you also Ian Googling and Mark Edge Googling and
That can neither be confirmed nor denied.
Jim Jesus Googling?
Keenevention is brought to you by Roberts & Roberts at rrbi.co when you're serious about precious metals. We don't feed the banks. Bitcoin payment preferred. Online at rrbi.co.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.